Hello and welcome. I'm Donna Cryer, founder and CEO of the Global Liver Institute. Thank you for participating in Global Fatty Liver Day, the day each year where communities around the globe unite to raise awareness in their communities, educate healthcare professionals, patients, policymakers, and the public, and provide screenings for what we now know to be the most common liver disease in the world. Today, I'm thrilled to introduce The State of Fatty Liver Disease, Voices of Global Leaders, during which we will hear the latest insights on trends and significant developments related to fatty liver disease from world-renowned experts. 2024 has been filled with milestones in the field of fatty liver disease, from the first US FDA-approved pharmaceutical therapy to major changes in the scientific nomenclature for the disease. You may have heard of terms like MASH or MASLD used. Also, major studies are showing promising options on the horizon to address fatty liver disease, its concurrent conditions, and complications. Still, the prevalence of fatty liver disease continues to rise around the world. More often than not, the symptoms of fatty liver disease go unnoticed until later stages when complications like hepatic encephalopathy, ascites, or even cirrhosis or liver cancer occur. Yet when the disease is detected in its initial stages, it can often be managed or even reversed. This is why this year's theme, Act Now, Screen Today, is so critical. Now is the time to take your own health and that of your community or of your patients into your own hands. Stay with us to hear from a series of experts on their perspectives on the current state of fatty liver disease through their research, clinical care, or experiences in the community. You'll also hear emerging best practices in fatty liver disease care management to ensure equitable access to screening, diagnosis, and treatment, critical public health components in our global fight against fatty liver disease. Whether you are a patient, care partner, healthcare professional, industry champion, or other liver health advocate, I am certain that our experts have something valuable to offer you today. Thank you again for joining us.
Hi, my name is Gary Miller. I'm a Global Liver Institute trained patient advocate, and my journey with MASH started over 35 years ago. I was seeing a physician who ran a blood test which came out with some high liver enzymes. So she referred me to an internist who specialized in liver medicine. I was obese at the time. Uh, I walked into his office. He took one look at me and said, "So you have a fatty liver. What are you really here for?" That was my introduction to having a fatty liver. He went on to diagnose my sleep apnea, so it was well worth the time. But it always stuck in my head. The next time I saw a doctor was a couple of years later, and I mentioned this comment to him, and he explained to me that fatty liver disease was basically a benign condition because it only got worse in about less than 5% of the patients that had it. And that was the word he used, benign, but he went on to diagnose my diabetes. Um, Fast forward 30 years, and I have been through every kind of ologist you could ever imagine: hepatologist, neurologist, bariatric doctor, surgeon, general surgeon, urologist, and several PCPs, and still no diagnosis, even though I had all of the telltale signs, including things like bleeding varices, hepatic encephalopathy, and even a biopsy, which stated that I was in the early stages of cirrhosis. Um, I was on my dying day, rushed to the hospital, waking up to seeing my PCP actually, who said that he had finally made the diagnosis of hepatic encephalopathy and late stage NASH. And unfortunately, by that time, my liver was in complete failure, and my only solution was a transplant. I was lucky enough to get into the transplant program at New York Presbyterian with Dr. Wattichero. And post transplant, my liver is doing great. We fondly call him Oliver. And he's doing a great job, but I have all of the other symptoms and diagnoses of MASH. Every metabolic failure I have, whether it's heart, whether it's kidney, whether it's obesity, whether it's sleep apnea, whether it's diabetes, I have all of them. And that requires me to have 11 specialists. Uh, I am retired, but I have a day job, and that includes going to all of the appointments for the 11 specialists, all of the testing procedures, and then coming home and dealing with all of the errors that were made by their offices or my insurance companies or the testing labs, because that becomes the patient's responsibility. I have learned over the years that our medical system is designed very well for acute kinds of illness. If you break a leg, if you have a heart attack, our system handles that very well. But for those of us in the 5% range of chronic illnesses, we have to be our own advocates because the system is not designed to help us efficiently. So the thing I would ask you to do is to be your own best friend and work through the system in a way that works for you.
My name is Lauren Nicolosi. I'm a nurse practitioner in the Maslow's program. I work together with Dr. Watachero to see patients with all stages of liver disease, ranging from mild severity to those who have received liver transplants like Gary. Some comments that I hear very frequently during my visits include, "What is fatty liver disease? How did this happen? But I don't drink alcohol. Are you sure I have liver disease? I feel fine. What can I do? Is there medicine for this?" A big chunk of my visit involves answering these questions and also educating the patient on their stage of disease and what additional testing or interventions they may need, especially outside of liver disease.
Hi, my name is Matthew Ford, and I am a clinical research coordinator, a part of the Transplant Research Center, working specifically with Dr. Watershall and Lauren Nicolosi on clinical trials centered around patients with fatty liver disease. One of the most rewarding parts of participating in these clinical trials, assisting patients with this diagnosis, is seeing the subjects' improved quality of life from study medications that could soon further impact millions of other people. Of note, clinical trials require on-site visits ranging from 1 week all the way to a monthly basis. This requires these patients to interrupt their work week or retirement plans to come on site and not only help themselves, but help us facilitate the research studies. Therefore, one area that I look forward to us continuously dedicating our energy to improve is establishing more transportation systems, be it a taxi service, a busing service, or a reimbursement service that could pay for their own personal travel. This would not only help facilitate strong clinical research practices on a site level, but would also help build trust in the patients within our community.
Hi, everyone. My name is Julia Watachero. I'm a transplant hepatologist and clinician investigator at Columbia. I also direct the Maslow's program and have been passionate about all aspects of how Maslow's impacts humans for a long time. As you heard from Gary, Lauren, and Matthew, targeting this disease means thinking about the whole person within a complex disease and a complex system over a long period of time. Our goal is to partner with patients and their advocates to transform how Maslow's patients are cared for through clinical care, research, and education at all levels, individual and systematic. So, where are we now? MASH, or metabolic dysfunction associated steatohepatitis, is a subtype of the most common cause of chronic liver disease in the world, affecting approximately a third of the population. In the US, the healthcare burden cost estimate is over $100 billion. Our first drug was approved for this disease approximately 3 months ago. However, it still remains really underrecognized, underdiagnosed, and undertreated. Why is that? Our current approach is complex. It's dependent on a provider being aware of the disease, recognizing how the risk factors interact with the disease progression and regression over time, and it's inefficient. It's performed on a per patient basis and on an ad hoc basis, kind of like you heard from Gary's story. So, what do we need? We need something fast, we need something scalable, and we need something that humans interact with machines in a rapid format in order to help people be identified and stratified. faster.
Hi, my name's Anna Basil. I'm a senior scientist, and I'm interested in this work because I believe in the potential that machine-based approaches can have in aiding the diagnosis and the treatment of patients with metabolic disease. And Dr. Wadacheril has provided me with an opportunity to work on this. And together, we have developed an algorithm to rapidly identify MASH patients using EHR or electronic health record data. Electronic health record data includes prescription information, disease diagnoses, laboratory measurements, such as from blood measurements, as well as clinical notes that are taken when we have imagings or scans. Our algorithm uses over 400 data elements, such as diabetes diagnoses, from the EHR to identify MASH patients. In developing our algorithm, we examined over 12 million patients across 3 independent, diverse healthcare systems. This includes Columbia University in New York City, Penn Medicine in Philadelphia, and Vanderbilt Medical Center in Nashville, Tennessee. Our algorithm has high performance. The ability of our machine-based approach to identify patients who actually have MASH is about 80%, currently beating a biopsy. Also, about 67% of the patients that our algorithm identified were currently undiagnosed with metabolic-associated steatotic liver disease. The patients that our machine-based approach has identified will next be targeted for in-human clinical validation so that we have another step in validating how well our machine-based approach is performing.
So, what are the potential implications for patients like Gary and maybe you? So, using a machine derived, augmented, but human in the loop approach where no diagnosis is made without a clinician, but a overwhelmed and tired clinician could be helped by a machine. Sometimes that will refer to a clinical specialty like bariatric surgery earlier on in the trajectory of disease. Sometimes it'll mean that someone is in a rare group that we need to pursue a little bit of genomic testing on because they don't fit the classical clinical descriptions of a disease like MASLD. Sometimes people are going to need specific types of cancer screening for their stage of disease. And then most commonly, we need to interrogate some of these special groups, the 5%ers, that may not be behaving like other types of disease and target them for clinical follow-up. And then importantly, as Matthew shared, there are lots of investigational drugs in development that need to be tried in humans. So offering that as a potential option to a patient is also how we can move this disease, its process forward so that we can advance patient care at a faster clip. So, what's the call for everyone listening out there working together? So, patient's partner is critical. Listening to a patient's story, their frustrations, and what has happened to them has driven this development. Patients like Gary. Accelerating the identification and stratification so it's not dependent on a provider's level of education at that point of care. Machines can help us as humans, but they're not left to do things independently. We have the power to do this all together. So, over the course of some of our lifetimes, NAFLD was first described as a disease. The histology was first developed and defined in 1999. The new name emerged in 2023 with new branding, and our first drug just came out a few months ago. So the accelerated pace is happening. We just can do more and better and faster. So that time is now. So please join us.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Samar Ibrahim. I'm a pediatric liver specialist at Mayo Clinic. I study mechanism of liver inflammation in MASLD, which is the new nomenclature for NAFLD or non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. And MASLD, as we all know, stands for metabolic dysfunction associated steatotic liver disease. I also see patients with MASLD. Most of my patients are children. And I do have success story where patients were successful in achieving significant weight loss, improving the liver enzymes, and resolving the fatty liver. However, we all know that this is a small proportion of the patient we see, and most of our patients are in need of pharmacotherapy to help them achieve their goal and prevent the progression of their mast cell liver disease. Unfortunately, we are living in an era where there are lots of clinical trials ongoing for a very promising agent. In 2024, we had the approval of the first therapeutic agent massively. This is resmetirom, or the thyroid hormone receptor agonist. It has been provisionally approved due to significant improvement in hepatic outcome. Multiple other agents are under development, and they are showing really favorable outcome, including the FGF21 or the fibroblast growth factor analog, equitable, that have shown also significant improvement in the metabolic parameters of patients with mast cell and their liver fibrosis and histology. The incretin-based therapies are gaining more attention right now. They are approved for use in obesity in children 12 years and above, and there are a lot of clinical study in adults showing their improvement of the metabolic parameter as well as the liver fat and liver enzymes. So really it's an exciting time, and the hope that this approval of the resmetirom is to accelerate the research in the mast cell space, basically by potentially increasing the investment and the funding, and then increasing collaboration between academia and industry. Maybe this will allow an accelerated research regarding the mechanism of action that have not been identified before, and more opportunity for innovation. We're going to need also more study to prove the long-term efficacy and benefit and safety as well of resmetirom and its use with the indication and the benefit of using it with other agents and their development as well. So this approval is really promising. It's expected to provide a roadmap for other drug under development, navigating the regulatory pathway. So what about the future of mast cell and what area of research are still needed? There are still a lot to be done. And among these things that we need to understand better is the role of combination therapies in patients with mast cell and fibrosis. We need non-invasive biomarkers that are well validated to assess disease severity and follow the patient for progression or response to therapy. We need to better understand the genetic basis of mast cell and how to use this genetic risk variant to screen patients in the clinical setting and individualize their therapy. And we need to understand different mechanisms of mast cell, including the role of the microbiome or the gut-liver axis, the role of the immune system, the disease progression, how to modulate the immune system to reduce liver fibrosis. We are always in need of long-term study to better understand the natural history of mast cell, especially when it develops early on in life, like in the pediatric age group. And also conducting population health studies is important because it helps us understand the risk factor at the population level. So always it's very important if you are a healthcare provider or a patient to refer or to seek a clinical trial, because this will help us understand mast cell pathophysiology and treatment better. And clinical trial, as you all know, is essential to evaluate the efficacy and safety of emerging therapies. It's very important for their development and to secure regulatory approval and have these agents in the market available for the public. And patient clinical trial often receive the optimum therapy. They are closely monitored for disease progression, and they have access to potentially effective treatment when they are in the treatment arm, of course. These agents in clinical trial are novel, as we all know, and they are not yet available to the general public. And at the end, I would like to close with a call of action for a proactive improvement of outcome and liver health. And this is really important. It's important to empower our patients through knowledge and help them make informed decisions about their health. And this can only be achieved through this partnership between the patient, the community, and the healthcare provider, and having educational events like this one, and community support. This all is important to help detect mast early on when it's just steatosis without the inflammatory or the fibrosis component. At this stage, this disease is easier to manage, and it's very important to follow those patients and to screen them continually to assess their progression and prevent the development of complication of end-stage liver disease, including liver cancer. And with that, I thank you for giving me the opportunity to send this message on this very special day. Thank you.
I'm Dr. Amreen Danani, an associate professor of medicine at Duke University. I'm a hepatologist and I take care of patients with metabolic dysfunction, associated steatotic liver disease, or MASLD, which was formerly known as NAFLD, and metabolic dysfunction associated steatohepatitis, which is MASH, formerly known as NASH. I'm delighted to participate on Global Fatty Liver Day and share my thoughts about MASLD with you. MASLD is a growing epidemic. It is closely related to the diabetes and obesity epidemics. Recently, we have acknowledged that it is indeed a metabolic disorder affecting at least 30%, if not more, of the global population, and projected to increase. With it, we will see increasing rates of cirrhosis and associated complications, MASLD-associated hepatocellular carcinoma or liver cancer, and one of the leading indications for liver transplantation. The name change from NAFLD to MASLD is well thought out. We're now identifying it as a metabolic disease. It is a diagnosis of inclusion versus exclusion, and acknowledge that you can have other chronic liver diseases in addition to MASLD. We also have consensus guidance from multiple societies that high-risk populations, such as patients with type 2 diabetes and obesity, should be screened for MASLD fibrosis. What I have learned from working with colleagues throughout our healthcare system is that screening or even thinking about MASLD is not always on their radar for multiple reasons. And even once they screen for MASLD, the logistics of how to refer, who to refer, guidance on treatment, and follow-up is variable. So what we have done in our healthcare system is taken a few steps to simplify the screening and provide detailed guidance on who would benefit from seeing a specialist. The first step was automating the FIB4 calculation in the electronic medical record. We targeted the type 2 diabetes population, as this was an easy population to identify accurately in our EMR. FIB4 is an easy test to use at no additional cost, uses available lab values such as liver enzymes, platelet count, and the age of a patient. It can be used to initially screen patients at risk for MASLD and rule out advanced fibrosis. FIB4 has been endorsed by multiple guidelines as the first step in fibrosis assessment. What we did next was create a pathway for those with FIB4 scores that require further testing. So this would be a score of 1.3 and higher. The recommendation is to either perform a FibroScan to obtain liver stiffness measurements or an ELF test. Access to FibroScan can be limited, and we see this in some of our clinics at Duke. And there are other factors also that can impact the accuracy of a FibroScan. So instead of relying on a FibroScan solely, what we did was we integrated the ELF test, which is the Enhanced Liver Fibrosis Test, into our EMR, thus allowing clinicians to conduct a secondary test and not solely relying on the FibroScan. The bottom line is we need to recognize that there are populations that are at risk for MASLD fibrosis, and second, have one or two ways of assessing the degree of liver fibrosis is better than not assessing them at all. And this can be achieved by a combination of blood-based tests or imaging-based tests. Make the process simple and know what to do with the test. By testing, we can identify those that would have otherwise not been diagnosed or screened, but in addition, we can refer the right patient to subspecialty care where we can then discuss liver-related and liver-directed therapies and other treatment options. This is truly an exciting time for the liver community, both for clinicians taking care of patients with MASH, but also for patients living with MASH. Earlier this year, we had the approval of the first ever medical treatment for MASH fibrosis called Rezdiffra. This has been approved for those with MASH and moderate to advanced fibrosis. So this is someone with MASH with stage 2 to 3 fibrosis, and also does not require a liver biopsy, meaning more important now for us to start familiarizing ourselves with the non-invasive tests that I mentioned earlier. This is just the beginning in the treatment landscape for MASH. We have successfully initiated patients on Rezdiffra. It's been tolerated well, and we work very closely with the company to make the approval process seamless for us and the patient, and this has been really well received by our patients. We also want to keep in mind that in addition to things like Rezdiffra and the other agents that will come down the line in the next several years, we already have many tools that we can use to help our patients. The backbone of treatment is to adopt a healthy lifestyle. When you come to my MASLD clinic, your appointment will start at the front desk, where you're asked to leave your sugar-sweetened beverages in the front, and later we educate patients that simple interventions such as removing juice, soda, sugar-sweetened foods and beverages have profound impact on improving your overall liver health by reducing hepatic steatosis, inflammation, and in addition will help with sugar control and weight loss goals without even thinking about it. I also think we should not make weight loss the center of our intervention or advice that we give to our patients. In fact, what I think we should do is focus and empower people to eat what they normally eat healthier, how to incorporate movement into their daily routine without making it cumbersome, and recognize that there are other factors that can infect their disease, such as the quality of their sleep and the emotional and physical limitations that are contributing to this disease. Treating MASLD will require all of us to do our part. What we are doing today is acknowledging, educating ourselves, peers, patients, and communities, and setting the framework to tackle MASLD. If you have type 2 diabetes, you should ask your primary care clinician to screen you for MASLD with FIB4. If your FIB4 is 1.3 and higher, you should get additional testing, and this can be done various ways. And it doesn't matter which test it is, as long as you're getting stratified for being at risk for advanced liver disease. If you're a clinician taking care of patients with risk of MASLD, such as those with type 2 diabetes, make MASLD or liver health as part of your preventative health check that we commonly do for these patients anyway. We need to join forces to tackle this global problem, and we need to do this together. I want to thank you for your time and participating in Global Fatty Liver Day.
Hi, my name is Tessa Janowski. I am a physician assistant and lead APP at Arizona Liver Health. We have multiple clinics in the Valley of the Sun and serve a wide variety of patient populations. We see a great number of patients with MASLD and MASH across different patient populations. And we also have a pretty robust clinical trials program here at Arizona Liver Health. Our philosophy revolves around tailoring the needs of each individual patient. We understand that improving metabolic health is not a one-size-fits-all, so we really try to really take the time with our patients and sit down and figure out what simple, easy lifestyle changes that we can incorporate into their daily lives. From patients who have a busy work-life schedule to others who just really don't know where to start. As advanced practice providers, we have a unique role where we're able to cultivate more personal relationships with patients and spend more time to get down to the nitty-gritty as far as what their individual needs may be. Whether it's incorporating more dietary intervention, or it's talking to them about how they can increase their steps or increase exercise in their daily lives. As far as treatment for MASLD and MASH, Again, we really take an individualized approach to this. First and foremost, we focus on dietary and lifestyle modifications, really focusing on lower carbohydrate, lower sugar diet, and overall just increasing their activity levels. We really try to aggressively treat their metabolic risk factors. For example, for diabetic patients, we really like to use the newer generation GLP-1 receptor agonists to help lower their blood sugar levels and also hopefully help to induce a little bit of weight loss. Other examples for high cholesterol, we make sure that we're optimizing medical therapy for cholesterol as well as blood pressure. We do have a new drug that has been FDA approved for the treatment of MASH with F2 and F3 fibrosis in conjunction with diet and exercise, called Rezdiffra. First in its class medication to treat patients with MASH. So if the patient is a candidate for Rezdiffra, we definitely try to locate those patients and provide them with some additional options as far as how to treat their MASH. Outside of therapeutic intervention currently available, we do have a very robust clinical trials program with some great drugs that are in development for the treatment of MASH. So that's definitely a great option for our patients that we can provide. That's really unlike any other clinic in the Valley here. The future of MASH therapeutics is very promising as we come to understand more about the complex mechanisms of MASH. I think we're all coming to the understanding that it's likely going to be more than a single drug or a single mechanism of action that's going to help these patients. If we can have a medication or a combination of medication that not only targets the inflammation going on in the liver, but also can work on the fibrosis, as far as fibrosis assessment, then that's ultimately going to be the goal. So again, overall, the future of MASH treatment is, in my opinion, likely going to involve a multi-drug regimen, as well as always reiterating those diet and lifestyle modifications. And the goal there is that these diet and lifestyle interventions become habits that continue to develop over time and maintain long-term. MASLD and MAS is only increasing in prevalence. It's forecasted by 2040 over half of the population will have MASLD. A big issue that we run into is just overall awareness of the disease. Patients, since MASLD doesn't cause any symptoms until unfortunately it's too late, a lot of patients often go undiagnosed for a very long period of time. There's also misconceptions about liver disease. I have a lot of patients in clinic say to me, I never drink alcohol, how can I have liver disease? So it's really, it starts at the primary care level when you see these patients for their annual physical exam. If they have any metabolic risk factors, especially type 2 diabetes and obesity, we should be thinking, well, what about the liver? Let's get the liver screened. Addressing the lack of awareness of MASLD requires a multi-faceted approach, including public health campaigns, provider education, and community initiative outreach. I strongly recommend any provider that sees patients for metabolic associated conditions really take the time to educate themselves on what MASLD is and how we can better locate these patients. Increasing awareness about the risk factors, the consequences of MASLD can encourage early detection and prompt intervention. And the goal in all of this is to decrease the burden of liver disease over time, decrease the amount of patients that we're seeing with advanced fibrosis, which unfortunately is only projected to increase. We see a wide variety of patients with MASLD and MASH with different fibrosis scores. unfortunately, we do see a pretty frequent amount of patients that come in, unfortunately, with stage 3 and stage 4 fibrosis that maybe have had metabolic disease for 10, 20 years, for example, have had diabetes for 20 years, unfortunately, over time, has had fatty liver, and it's developed into advanced fibrosis. But we also do see a lot of success stories. For example, I had a patient, a female, a middle-aged female, who had a really busy work-life schedule. She came in, she had F3 disease, her liver enzymes were significantly elevated, and I sat down with her and I said, hey, tell me about your day, and let's discuss how we can make subtle changes, little changes that over time can make a big difference. And so she was a busy mom of 3 kids, works at a local university here, working sometimes 12 hours a day. And she frequently ate out. And so at the end of the day, we're all human. We're all going to have to eat out every once in a while. So I said, hey, let's research restaurants or food places around that have healthier options, if that is something that you have to do on that given day. And so I saw her back for follow-up 6 months later. She had lost 30 pounds. She completely reduced the fat on her liver. Her fibrosis score went down from 3 to a 1. Her liver enzymes normalized, and she took the time, and she knew that it was going to take a while to make these changes, but she started researching what was around her community as far as food options. She started meal prepping on the weekends, and she had 3 or 4 different meal preps that she kind of switched up. She eliminated all of her soda and switched to carbonated water. And those simple changes over time made a huge difference. And now I can safely tell her that she had reversed her muscle, her MASH. And so now the conversations with her have switched up a little bit. It's all about maintaining. And how are we going to maintain these changes and continue them forever? Because we know at the end of the day that muscle can come back. That's just one example about how you can tailor the treatment to their individual needs and really work with them to give them solutions that is going to work with their lifestyle. If your office is located in Arizona, we do have offices in Peoria, Chandler, Tucson, and our newest office in Flagstaff. We screen patients day in and day out for fatty liver disease. Let's work together to increase awareness and locate these patients who may be at risk for MASLD and MASH.